The world knows Keanu Reeves as a humble movie star, an action icon, and a man of mystery whose kindness has become the stuff of legend. But no one could have expected what happened on a seemingly ordinary night during a live talk show appearance. When the host asked Keanu about faith, he paused, and then uttered a name that left millions in stunned silence: Pope Robert Prevost. What followed wasn't a scripted, PR-approved soundbite. It was a raw, emotional, and profoundly spiritual confession that sent shockwaves through media outlets, religious communities, and fans around the globe. What was the connection between Hollywood's most grounded actor and the newly appointed pope whose rise from missionary work in Peru to the Vatican had already inspired thousands? Why did Keanu's voice tremble as he spoke? And what truth did he unveil that had people reevaluating fame, faith, and the very meaning of humility? This is not just a story about two men from vastly different worlds. It's a journey through belief, suffering, redemption, and the mysterious ways that lives intersect. This is the moment Keanu Reeves mentioned Pope Robert Prevost on live TV, and what he said left everyone speechless. Chapter 1. The Night of the Interview. It was a chilly Thursday evening in Los Angeles. The Late Talk studio buzzed with anticipation as fans filled the seats, eagerly waiting for Keanu Reeves' first public appearance in months. He had just finished shooting an indie film about silence and solitude, a passion project few had heard about. The host, charismatic and clever, greeted Keanu with the usual banter about movies, motorcycles, and memes. Everything was going smoothly until the conversation took an unexpected turn. "Keanu," the host began casually, "you've been described as one of the most spiritual actors in Hollywood. I'm curious, what role does faith play in your life?" Keanu leaned back in his chair, looking up at the stage lights. There was a moment of silence. Then, softly, he spoke. Chapter 2. There's a man I've been thinking about. "I don't usually talk about this," Keanu began, "but there's a man I've been thinking about a lot lately, someone I've never met, but who has moved me deeply, Pope Robert Prevost." The host blinked. The audience murmured. Even the crew looked at each other in surprise. Keanu continued, "I read about him while filming in a remote village in Peru. His story, it broke me, in a good way. He reminded me of everything I had forgotten about hope, about service, and about what it means to truly lead." Chapter 3. Who is Pope Robert Prevost? Before we dive deeper into Keanu's revelation, let's take a moment to understand who Pope Robert Prevost is. Born in Chicago in 1955, Prevost felt a calling to serve the poor and marginalized at a young age. After joining the Augustinian order, he spent years in Peru, not in luxurious embassies or grand cathedrals, but in small villages, washing the feet of the sick, comforting the dying, and educating orphaned children. His rise through the church was never about ambition. It was about duty, compassion, the kind of quiet leadership that doesn't seek the spotlight, but somehow shines brighter because of it. In 2023, his appointment as a high-ranking Vatican official shocked many. In 2025, he became the first American-born pope in centuries, a humble missionary now called to shepherd the entire global church. Chapter 4. He lived among the forgotten. Back on the live show, Keanu's voice was steady but emotional. "I read that Pope Robert used to live in a mud-walled house with no electricity, by choice," he said. "He lived among the forgotten. And he didn't just preach, he listened. Really listened. That hit me hard." The host leaned forward, captivated. The audience was silent. You could hear a pin drop. Keanu wiped his eyes and added, "I've lived in luxury. I've had everything money could buy. But I've never felt as rich as that man probably felt, sitting beside a dying stranger, holding their hand." This is just the beginning. Chapter 5. A past Keanu never shared until now. The world knows Keanu as stoic and serene, but as he leaned into the story of Pope Robert Prevost, something in him seemed to crack, not in a way that made him seem weak, but more human than ever before. There was a time in my life, Keanu confessed, when I lost almost everything. My best friend, my daughter, the woman I loved, all gone. People said I was resilient, but the truth, I was numb. I didn't know if I believed in anything anymore. The audience sat in stunned silence, many hearing this level of emotional vulnerability from Keanu for the first time. His eyes glistened with the weight of memory. I was in Peru, he continued, walking through this mountain village when a local priest handed me a little book, stories of the Padre Gringo, as they called him. It was Robert Prevost, and reading his words, it made me feel again. It made me believe that maybe grace still exists in this world. Chapter 6. He doesn't want a throne. Keanu turned to the host and added something that left the room breathless. He doesn't want a throne. He wants a bench in the dust with the broken. That line became an instant viral quote. Within hours, the clip spread across social media like wildfire. Commentators from every background weighed in, theologians, celebrities, skeptics, believers, all united in curiosity about the Pope Keanu so deeply admired. But Keanu wasn't done. On that stage, his tone shifted from personal to prophetic. I think we need voices like his, he said. In a world obsessed with noise and narcissism, here's a man who whispers truth through actions, and it's louder than anything I've ever heard in Hollywood. Chapter 7. The Secret Letter. A week after the interview aired, another unexpected twist made headlines. A representative from the Vatican confirmed that Pope Robert Prevost had, in fact, seen Keanu's interview and had written him a private letter in response. Though the contents were never made public in full, sources close to Keanu revealed that the letter included a handwritten message from the Pope. What we do for love, not fame, not power, that is what echoes in eternity. That line struck Keanu like lightning. According to friends, he read it over and over again, keeping the note folded in his coat pocket like a talisman. Later, in a podcast interview, he would say, "That letter reminded me why I ever picked up a camera. Not to be seen, but to see others, to witness the invisible stories." Chapter 8. Hollywood Reacts. As the video continued to go viral, reactions poured in from across Hollywood. Actress Sandra Bullock posted, "Keanu has always had the soul of a poet. Now the world sees it too." Director Christopher Nolan tweeted, "Rarely does a celebrity moment touch something eternal." That was one. But it wasn't just celebrities. Religious leaders, school teachers, refugees, and everyday people from all walks of life began using the hashtag #LeadLikePrevost, inspired not just by Pope Robert, but by Keanu's willingness to speak about something deeper than red carpets and box office records. One post went viral from a small church in rural Iowa. "We played Keanu's clip instead of the sermon this Sunday because sometimes truth comes from the most unexpected prophets." Chapter 9. The Silence Before the Change. After the interview, Keanu went silent on social media. He didn't give interviews. He didn't promote anything. For nearly a month, fans wondered if he'd disappeared. What they didn't know was that Keanu had flown, anonymously and without fanfare, back to Peru. Photos later surfaced. Keanu walking through a crowded street market, helping distribute food at a mission school, sitting quietly during a village mass. No security, no press, just a man seeking something beyond the camera. A journalist who recognized him asked, "Why here? Why now?" Keanu simply smiled and replied, to walk where he walked, to see what he saw, to feel the ground that grew saints. Chapter 10. Pope Prevost speaks publicly. Then the world heard from Pope Robert Prevost himself. In a Sunday message from St. Peter's Square, the Pope did not mention Keanu by name, but his words unmistakably echoed their bond. We are all called, whether actors, teachers, farmers, or popes, to kneel beside the forgotten, not rise above them. Sometimes the voice of the church is not in the pulpit, but in the whisper of a man who has suffered, who loves, who listens. The crowd at the Vatican cheered. In studios across the globe, people paused their scrolling. This was no longer a celebrity soundbite. This was a cultural shift, a spiritual awakening seeded in the most unexpected soil. Chapter 11. The Forgotten Children. During his visit to Peru, Keanu found himself drawn to a small orphanage outside of Chulucanas, the same region where Pope Robert Prevost had once ministered decades earlier. The orphanage, still modest, still barely funded, was filled with the echo of laughter and resilience. Keanu didn't arrive with press or gifts. He came with his hands, he cooked, he cleaned, he played soccer with barefoot kids in the dust. But one moment, captured quietly by a volunteer's phone, would later become a symbol. Keanu sat on the ground, face to face with a boy named Mateo, about 7 years old, with burn scars on his arms from a house fire. The boy asked in Spanish, "Eres famoso?" "Are you famous?" Keanu laughed gently, then replied in halting Spanish, "Un poco." "Pero tú eres importante." "A little. But you are important." That clip alone garnered 100 million views within a week. And in its simplicity, it reflected everything Pope Robert had lived for, and everything Keanu now stood for. Chapter 12. A Hollywood project like no other. When Keanu returned to the United States, he didn't jump back into blockbusters or brand deals. Instead, he began work on something no one saw coming, a film not about action, but about transformation, and not about himself, but about Pope Robert Prevost. He didn't want to star in it. He wanted to write it, direct it, shape it with reverence and truth. The film, tentatively titled The Dust and the Crown, would focus on Pope Robert's early years in Peru, showing not a saint with a halo, but a struggling priest who wrestled with doubt, poverty, and isolation before discovering his unshakable purpose. "I don't want a clean narrative," Keanu told the producer. "I want the real story, the mud, the blood, the miracles that happen quietly." For funding, he partnered with global NGOs. Half the film's budget was allocated to build new schools and shelters in underfunded regions of Latin America, a first in Hollywood history. Chapter 13. A World Inspired. As news of Keanu's project and actions spread, a remarkable ripple effect began to take place. A group of university students in France launched a campaign called #Art for Justice, donating proceeds of their creative work to aid missions in South America. Priests in the Philippines began holding screenings of the Keanu interview as part of youth retreats on humility and service. A music artist in Nigeria released a track called Prevost's Prayer, blending spoken word and Afrobeat rhythms with real audio clips from the Pope's speeches. It wasn't just religious institutions joining in. Secular communities, nonprofits, activists, all found a strange, beautiful common ground in the overlapping stories of a gentle Hollywood actor and a pope who wore dusty sandals. The phrase, "walk like Prevost, love like Keanu," became an unofficial motto in online spaces, dedicated to volunteerism and social justice. Chapter 14. The Letter Heard Round the World. 6 months after that fateful interview, the Vatican made a bold and unprecedented move. Pope Robert Prevost released a public letter, not to clergy, not to theologians, but to artists. Titled Letter to the Creators, the letter praised the sacred role of storytelling in modern culture. And within its pages, he wrote, "A camera can capture more than faces, it can reveal souls, and a film, though made in the world, can point toward heaven." He mentioned Keanu Reeves by name, thanking him not for praise, but for witnessing with honesty and choosing light when darkness would have been easier. Keanu responded not with a statement, but with a photo, a grainy image of a candle in a Peruvian church, captioned, "Sometimes all you can do is carry a small flame, but maybe that's enough." The flame emoji trended for days across social media, not as a meme, but as a quiet symbol of hope. Chapter 15: The Pope and the Pilgrim. The story reached its pinnacle 1 year to the day after Keanu first mentioned Pope Robert on television. An unannounced meeting took place at the Vatican. No paparazzi, no red carpet. Just two men, one wearing papal white, the other a simple black jacket. They spoke for 3 hours behind closed doors. When asked by a reporter outside what was said, Keanu simply answered, "We talked about loss, about faith, about cinema, and about how a life of silence can sometimes speak the loudest." Later, Pope Prevost released a rare joint message with Keanu, urging the world to choose compassion over criticism, humility over performance, and love over fear. It ended with a line neither man had written, but one they both quoted together. "Let us not aim to be seen, let us aim to see." And just like that, a Hollywood legend and a global spiritual leader rewrote what influence means, not with spectacle, but with stillness. Chapter 16: Echoes in the Dark. Following the unprecedented joint message between Pope Robert Prevost and Keanu Reeves, a wave of quiet introspection swept across the globe. It wasn't a trending headline anymore. It was something deeper, more personal. In therapy rooms, people referenced Keanu's interview as a turning point in their search for healing. In classrooms, students debated the meaning of modern humility. In prisons, inmates wrote letters to NGOs inspired by the film project, asking how they could contribute to the outside world. Keanu, meanwhile, retreated once again from the spotlight. But his absence didn't signal distance. It became a kind of presence, a symbol that maybe the real power of a public figure is knowing when to speak and when to disappear so others may be heard. "I've realized," he later said in a rare podcast, "the loudest things I've ever said were moments when I said nothing, when I just sat and listened. I think Pope Robert taught me that, without ever saying a word to me." Chapter 17: A Film That Wasn't About Film. By the time Keanu's movie, The Dust and the Crown, was completed, it had already broken records, not in ticket pre-sales, but in global non-profit contributions. The film's crowdfunding model had become a revolution. Every dollar given to the film translated into meals, medicine, or education in forgotten corners of the world. Major studios offered to distribute it. Keanu refused. Instead, he arranged for it to premiere in churches, schools, community centers, and refugee camps, places where people rarely get to see themselves represented on screen. The goal was never profit. It was presence. In one deeply emotional screening in a small Colombian village, an elderly woman stood after the film and whispered through tears, "I thought God forgot us, but tonight, He sent Keanu." That quote became the unofficial review that accompanied every bootleg copy shared in communities with no theaters. And Keanu insisted it remain uncopyrighted. Subscribe this channel for more inspirational videos. Thanks for watching.